Welcome back, everybody. So today we are going to be discussing wealth creation and how to get rich. Now, I am fully aware that this topic has been massively overcooked, especially on YouTube and throughout the internet, but I kind of want to give you my perspective on this whole topic. I do get asked relatively often on Instagram and like how to grow your money, like how to grow your finances, etc., etc. So I'm going to be obviously doing this video to kind of help them people. So now I can just send them this link. but yeah, to give you some insights in terms of my background, I have never been employed. I have been running businesses for at least 15 years. And throughout that time, I have met some very successful people all over the world, in the US and Europe, in the Middle East, all over the place, across Asia. And they have taught me some very good principles in terms of growing your wealth and obviously how to kind of grow your money. And I have been using these principles throughout the years, and I just thought I would kind of share them today. And hopefully one or two of you get a lot of value out of this. Now, like always, please like, comment, and subscribe. I know I don't really enjoy saying that, but it really does help in terms of getting the views and growing this channel on YouTube. Obviously, some of you know I am still kind of restricted on Instagram, so I do really appreciate if you can kind of like, comment on these YouTube videos. But anyway, to get straight into it. Let's get straight into it. So the first point is ignoring the status game. Now, what I mean by this is that when I was first starting my business, there was a lot of anticipation in terms of you needed to look a specific way to be successful, to be in business. And the thing is, at the time, I was reading a book about delayed gratification, about kind of putting them things off and just focusing on adding value, like making sure the business is solid. And then you can kind of use, let's say, some of that cash flow to buy some of these, let's say, luxury items. And there was a lot of pressure, a hell of a lot of pressure, especially when I was growing up, around having a very, very nice car or having very, very nice clothing. Now, I didn't partake in any of them games. I used to be quite contrarian in terms of how I used to think. Like where I, let's say, grew up, if you went into a pub, I mean, I come from England, but if you went into a pub and you said, how do you make money? Everybody would say the same thing. Like, you buy a house, you do it up, and you sell it. Now, I used to look around and be like, well, if that's the case, why is everybody not really that successful? Like, what is kind of going on to a certain extent? And the thing is, there were a lot of people like talking a good game, and they were kind of spending all of their money on these, let's say, things where it was just all around chasing status. Like, you had to look a specific way. You had to have a really nice car, you needed to have a really nice handbag or really nice clothing, and it was just a constant treadmill of constantly consuming things. And I would just completely go the other way. I would think, right, okay, well, if everyone's saying buy houses, I'm going to start looking at stocks. I'm going to start looking at markets. And especially when it come to kind of like getting a new car every 2 years. Like, I had friends at the time, and I've still got them today, who have been spending £600, £700, £800 a month on a luxury vehicle, when you can kind of use that money to kind of grow the business. And what you'll find with that is it preserves your energy, so you can focus on creating more value for the business and other different types of things. Which in turn grows real wealth. Now, also as well, what is quite kind of ironic is that at the time when I bought my first car, I was getting a lot of grief because this car is a very small car. It doesn't really go very, very quick. But I really liked it. It was very practical for me. I could park literally anywhere. This car is pretty much like a smart car to a certain extent. And I was kind of mocked a hell of a lot for having this car. Now, even today, I am still driving this car. And this is like 10 plus years on. And this car has probably saved me an absolute fortune, just in terms of road tax, just in terms of insurance, just in terms of like renewals. And this whole idea that why would you buy a car outright when you can use the bank's money and you can kind of lease a depreciating asset? Now, I hear this all the time, especially growing up. Like, why would you buy a car outright when you can get it on finance and you can kind of just lease the car over a month, over a number of years, and it's a lot more economical, blah, 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 blah. Like, This really, really, really does frustrate me, because the thing is, this whole idea that you think that the bank is lending you free money so you can buy a depreciating asset is absolutely bananas. Because the thing is, banks are in the business of making money. They are not, and managing risk specifically. So they are not going to lend you money and on the basis of not making any money. And I get it, you want the really nice car. I mean, like I said, like where I lived growing up, I had friends who were making £20,000 a year, £25,000 a year, and they were driving £75,000 cars, all on lease. Now, I'm not going to keep banging on about this, but yeah, I would completely ignore the social game. Just stay very humble in terms of buying, let's say, just buy things what work. You know, you don't need the luxury car. You don't need all of these luxury things, especially when you start out. You can grind, you can put that money back into the business, or you can put this money back into the market, and you can let that money work and compound over time. Now, the second point is owning equity. You don't just want to be selling your time for money, because obviously there's a ceiling on that. Now, I have seen firsthand that a lot of my friends have working incredibly hard, and it doesn't really matter how hard they actually work because their earnings are kind of capped. Now, by owning equity, this can be equity in a business, this can be equity in the stock market, wherever. The whole principle of it is that the upside is pretty much unlimited. And if you start to invest in something, that can grow while you're not working. So the idea of owning equity, I think, is very, very, very important, especially to try and get off this treadmill. Now, the third point is creating your own luck. Now, I know when people say that somebody is lucky, it kind of comes off as being quite negative. It's like, it doesn't really imply that they were skillful in what they did. It's like, oh, you're very lucky, and oh, you must have done really well for yourself. Oh, you're so lucky. And I don't mean it like that, and I don't even mean it by this whole affirmation thing. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother topic, really. It's like, I've seen a massive trend at the moment by people saying that if you say certain things over and over and over again, the universe or whatever will start to grant you what you want. Now, I don't really believe in that, but what I mean by creating your own luck is putting yourself in positions to be lucky. Like, why are you just staying in your house and just saying, I want this to happen to me, and I want blah, 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 blah. Nothing is going to happen. Nothing's going to change if nothing changes, right? So you have to put yourself in positions where you have the potential to be lucky. Now, to give you an example on this is, like, I used to, and I still do, I've been going to networking events for so many years now. And throughout the years, I have been incredibly lucky in terms of being introduced to people, you know, and then these clients have been, let's say, clients for a number of years now. And this is the thing, it's like, I used to go to a face-to-face networking event in the UK. And when I first went, it was so nerve-wracking for me. Like, I was thinking, oh my God, I have to speak in front of people. I have to figure out how to communicate properly during the different types of social interactions. I struggled with it a hell of a lot, but I knew that it was very, very good for me to be in that room, because me being in that room, I am putting myself in the room to be lucky, right? So I don't really want to bang on about this too much, but the idea is that every single week, so there's 25 to 30 people who show up every single week, and I'm asking for things throughout the week, as in, like, I would like an introduction into ABC type of businesses. And I have no idea if them 25 people have actually met ABC type of businesses throughout that week. And if they have, then great, they can make the introduction, and hey presto, I am lucky, right? So I would just say, create your own luck by putting yourself in positions to be lucky. Don't just say, I want to have this type of car, I want to have this type of lifestyle, blah, 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 and this whole affirmation board and this whole kind of like vision board, and you are not doing anything to get ahead. You need to start taking action and putting yourself in positions to actually be lucky. The fourth point is embracing a positive mindset. Now, I know that obviously the topic of this video is all about wealth and how to get rich, right? And the thing is, with a very depressed mindset, you are not going to see opportunities, right? You want to be around people who have a very positive outcome, a very positive mindset, especially when it comes to opportunities, especially when it comes to markets. especially when it comes to business. You don't want to be around people who have a very negative way of thinking, because it's very, very sticky, and that type of energy can really affect how you think, especially when it comes to kind of like doing things what I, let's say, considered risky. Because this is the thing, it's kind of like, I had a very, let's say, contrarian outlook. If somebody said I couldn't do something, I would double down and try and do it. Like, I'd be thinking, well, just because you can't do it, don't put them beliefs and that negativity onto me. That's all on you, right? Like, as in, the reason why, like, you cannot do it, it doesn't mean that I cannot do it. And again, when I started to surround myself with people who were very, very positive in terms of growing their business, in terms of investing, it really, really did help in terms of giving me confidence. And it's this whole idea, right? It's like birds of a feather flock together. Like how are you expecting to fly with the eagles when you are hanging out with the turkeys, right? So you want to be around them eagles. You want to be around people who are doing things what you want to be doing. And this is the thing. It's like picking a positive mindset, just changing things very, very, let's say, just changing words and different perspectives on things can massively help you in terms of getting the confidence and getting the momentum, in terms of investing, in terms of starting that business, and just moving forward. Now, the next point is avoiding debt. Now, for some people, this might be very, very tricky to actually do, but you want to kind of mitigate paying high amounts of interest on money what you have borrowed. Now, there's a lot of people who talk about good debt and bad debt. Now, typically, good debt is used for buying property. This is mainly commercial or residential property. And bad debt is typically credit card debt. What normally has very, very high interest, you want to kind of you want to remove these, let's say, liabilities as quickly as possible, because then you can start to use that capital and start to invest in businesses or in your own business, or even, just start to invest in, let's say, appreciating assets. Just avoiding debt is a great way in terms of wealth creation. Now, the next point is defining what success looks like to you. Now, I have personally fallen into this trap before. Like, when I was first starting the business, I used to do a lot of things because I thought that this is what you do when you are successful. So we kind of like scaled up all of our offices. We had like glass partition walls. We had a lot of things in the office what was kind of like defined as successful. And it's just kind of like a Red Bull fridge. We had a lot of like Xbox and pool tables and pretty much you name it, we pretty much had it. But all this really did was just add excess bloat to the P&L, like profit and loss. And just kind of gave more and more headache in terms of managing all of these things. And there were just ultimately just more distractions in the office, so the team wasn't really as productive. So the thing is, when you start to define what success looks like for you, you start to kind of change your viewpoints on a lot of different things. Now, for me, my definition of success was that I wanted to be financially independent, location independent, and time independent. Now, the thing is, this allows me to do whatever I want, whenever I want, wherever I want. Now, the thing is, you don't really need a hell of a lot of money to kind of do that. You just need to have, principles in place and kind of automation in terms of allowing you to be able to do a lot of things, let's say remotely to a certain extent. Now, this is the thing, it's like when you start to define them things, you can kind of work backwards from there. Now, like again, you can kind of get in this whole trap of like, oh, I need to look successful, so I need to do very successful things. Or let's say they perceive them as being very successful things when in reality, they don't really fulfill you at all. So just please define what success looks like for you. Now, the next point is not falling for gimmicks, especially when it comes to wealth creation and how to get rich. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people trying to sell so many different types of courses on how to get rich very, very quickly. Now, some things just take time. You need to have the knowledge, you need to have the principles. And the next point is you really need to have the motivation to kind of go through this whole emotion, because obviously it's a massive roller coaster in terms of like building a business or investing. Now, you can't have a baby in a month by getting 9 women pregnant. So it's a very, very similar principle. Some things just take time to build, and there's nothing wrong with that. So like, you should kind of be seeking out different types of knowledge and information Also, as well, trying to kind of mimic, let's take a step back, like trying to find a mentor and somebody who you respect and somebody who you can potentially copy. Like when I was first starting my business, I had, let's say, 2 mentors. I did not ask them to be a mentor at all. I would say do not ask that at all, because it's very, very off-putting, because they feel like they have to commit with time. Where what I found is that a lot of people kind of see themselves in you and they really want to help you out. So like finding let's say an individual who has a similar lifestyle to what you want, and then kind of be more around them so you can kind of mimic their behavior, and trying to figure out, okay, well, how do they learn information? What type of events did they go to? What type of books do they read? And you kind of you'll start to become a lot more like them. So, and this is the thing, is that you don't need these really big, let's say, business celebrities like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs. I mean, obviously these people give really good like principles and some really good insights in terms of managing businesses. But the thing is, this is the thing, it's like I have no idea who's watching this video. And for me to say, oh, you should be doing A, B, C, X, Y, and Z, I just find it very, again, like quite disingenuous, because the thing is, it's like you might not necessarily even be motivated to do, let's say, drop shipping, or just whatever. It's kind of figuring out what you are passionate about and then defining what you are passionate about. Okay, I'm really passionate about doing, I don't know, like cooking, for example. And then you find somebody who is, let's say, running a meal prep business. And then you kind of ask them a lot of questions. Obviously, you're not being too forceful, and you try to kind of pick up different things from them. And then obviously you can kind of scale out the business. Kind of like from there, I mean, cooking is probably a bad example, but you can kind of get the idea. Like, as in, again, like for me, when I was starting, I had a web business, and this guy has been like running a web business for over 20 years. I was passing him clients, not because I didn't want to do the work, but I wanted to get closer to him. So I knew that I had to feed him with, let's say, clients and business. And by me doing that, I got a lot closer to him, and I got a lot of good insights in terms of how to do proposals, how to do pitches. And later on, I ended up buying his business from him. And this is what I'm saying, is in like, you just kind of figure out, okay, well, who do you want to kind of like be like, and then be more around them people. Now, the next point is investing in knowledge. Now, many people who sell courses, especially online, they will always say this, that you need to invest in yourself, like you need to invest in knowledge, blah, 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 because obviously this makes you think, oh yeah, well, I'm doing the right thing in terms of buying his course. But the thing is, this is not what I mean. I'm not saying that all courses are bad, but you want to be finding sources of information, what kind of add value to you, and it helps you move forward. So, for example, if you want to get into more, let's say, stocks and figuring out how to analyze businesses and stocks, you can. I mean, this is what I specifically did. Like, so when I was running the web business, I knew that I wanted to kind of get more into the stock market and understand how to invest and how to grow my money. So what I did is that I found the top maybe 200 hedge fund managers, and I followed them all on Twitter. And I was engaging with their posts, I was following them on LinkedIn, and I was reading a lot of the material, what they were putting out in terms of research papers and in terms of analysis on different types of sectors within the market. Alongside that, I was reading a lot of the shareholder letters from Warren and Charlie Munger. And this is the thing, it's kind of like I just surrounded myself in terms of absorbing as much knowledge as possible from people who had the receipts, not people who say that, oh, if you buy my course, you'll be doing $10,000 a month, blah, 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 blah. I wanted to understand the foundation on how you analyze specific businesses, specific stocks, specific sectors. And this gave me a great foundation in terms of understanding what to invest in. And yeah, I mean, this is kind of what I'm getting at. It's you don't have to necessarily be really focused on, let's say, finance and stocks and all the rest of it, but just trying to surround yourself with knowledge, what will massively benefit you. Like, obviously, if you're starting a business and your business is in a specific sector, just read as many books as possible. And what I found as well, what really, really helped me in terms of trying to get the information very quickly, was that, let's say you want to read a book on, I don't know, let's say it's sales, for example, or networking. I would find the author of that book and I would put them into YouTube, and I would try to find a podcast of, let's say, an hour podcast from the author, obviously after they've released the book. Because what you'll find is that they'll try to give you an executive summary and the main takeaways of the book in that podcast. And it will allow you to kind of absorb and like information a lot quicker rather than reading a book or listening to a book, what will take a couple of hours. So that was just one thing what I've kind of massively helped me. And this is obviously just investing in knowledge. Now, the next point is understanding taxes. So taxes are massively important. There was somebody who I was doing a lot of business with, and I was in a meeting with him once, and he was just saying that the biggest kind of expense of his business is not the office, is not the employees, it is taxes. So understanding taxes in your jurisdiction can be massively beneficial. And this is the thing, it's like you don't necessarily need to know absolutely everything, because obviously that's what an accountant is for, and like a tax specialist, but it will allow you to kind of make better decisions if you understand, okay, well, if I take this amount of income this year, I'm going to be subject to this amount of, let's say, income tax or whatever in the following year. So how can I kind of, let's say, mitigate that or kind of reduce my overall taxes? So yeah, I would just say kind of understanding taxes is very worthwhile doing. And obviously when it comes from an investing perspective, you want to kind of figure out, okay, well, which is the best investment products, especially when it comes to capital gains. Like in the UK, you have something called a stocks and shares ISA, and you are allowed to put in about 20,000, I think it's about £20,000 every single year, and any gains or any income what you generate inside that ISA is completely exempt from capital gains and income tax. So again, it depends on the jurisdiction, it depends on what country you're currently in. In the UK, this is obviously a product what they have. Obviously if you're in Germany or Spain, I'm not really too sure on the different types of tax wrappers, but again, just paying attention to taxes can massively help. The next point is understanding how to manage risk. So the thing is, typically risk comes from not understanding what you're actually doing. So the thing is, if something is very volatile, especially in markets, you want to kind of assess of, okay, well, why is it volatile? And it might be volatile because a lot of people really misunderstand what they actually own. And this can be absolutely great, especially if you know what you actually own. So you can start to obviously average into that position. And obviously managing the risk, because a lot of people would say there's certain things what I personally own are very risky to actually own, but I feel very comfortable with it because again, I'm investing in a lot of technology businesses. A lot of things will have a lot of exposure to tech. I have been in tech for nearly 15 years. I feel very comfortable in the space. I don't necessarily feel very comfortable in let's say an oil refinement business or a nuclear business, like something what has exposure to nuclear. I don't really understand it, or pharma. I don't really understand these sectors. So for me, that would be very risky. So I typically just stick to things what I understand and just stick in my lane. So again, just trying to understand and how to manage risk. So the next point is social intelligence and understanding how to add value. So when I was first starting to do networking, I didn't really understand it. I really failed in terms of trying to understand, okay, well, how can I get more clients out of this room? I was I wouldn't say very pushy in terms of sales, but I just thought that you go to these networking events and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, what can I take from this room? And over the space of about a year, I really started to understand that the way how a lot of people, let's say, want to help me is if I add value. So I was kind of having a lot of these like social interactions, and I just started to kind of give a lot of information away for free, and a lot of people really started to trust me in terms of managing their let's say Google account or Facebook account. So at the time, and it's still the case now, is that I run a web and marketing agency. So we do a lot of kind of like software development and website development and paid advertising on Google and Facebook. So when I was in this networking event, there was a lot of people who were running Google ads and Facebook ads, and they were kind of not refusing, but they didn't really want to have a conversation with me because they always thought that I was going to pitch them in terms of managing their Google account. Now, I remember this very clearly, is that I was sat next to somebody during this networking event, and I was just talking about things what they could be implementing for completely free. Like I was just telling them exactly what they should be doing in terms of adding negative keywords, retargeting lists, etc. And the guy was really, really shocked that I was telling him all this stuff for free. He went back, he implemented it himself. He realized that the agency who was looking after his account was not doing this type of stuff. And again, he came back the following week and he was like, Danny, I really want you to kind of look after our account. Now, all I'm kind of getting at with this story is that what you want to be doing is you want to be trying to add value. So all the time. So I know it's not really the thing I know it might seem very, very foreign in terms of trying to add value all the time. And, because a lot of people just think, well, what is in it for me? Rather than trying to think, okay, well, if I just help people out as much as I can and trying to add as much value as possible, these good things are going to start to happen to me. Like I found that as I started to give more and more information, a lot of these people were giving me a lot more business. And yeah, I would just say, be very aware of the social interactions, what you're currently having, and also try and add as much value as possible and not expect anything in return. This massively, massively helped me out. Now, the next point is fundamentals. Now, fundamentals in the long term, they don't really matter in the short term. Now, the thing is, just because, again, something gets, goes down in price, if you understand the fundamentals of the business, of the stock, of the, let's say, crypto project or whatever it is, like you shouldn't necessarily be that shaken by it because you have a very, very good understanding of what you actually own. Now, a lot of people start to, let's say, become very emotional when it comes to trading and when it comes to investing because, again, they do not understand the fundamentals of the business. Now, recently, we've had this, there's been a very, very large narrative around DeepSeek and like DeepSeek's impact on the entire market. Now, especially when it comes to semiconductors. Now, DeepSeek was released, and as a result, we saw that Nvidia took over 600 billion off its market cap. Now, I mean, this was a very, very, very big day. It was the largest loss of any stock in history in terms of market cap. Now, one thing what you can kind of do is that if you understand the fundamentals of NVIDIA and you understand, let's say, AI and technology and all the rest of it, you can kind of come to some type of, let's say, thesis. Was that, let's say, drawdown excessive or was it worth it? And the thing is, obviously, when you can kind of be more, let's say, rational rather than being irrational on price action, you can kind of see these, let's say, this price action as an opportunity to buy, or you can kind of see it's an opportunity to kind of sell and get out. But the thing is, you want to be assessing the business, not necessarily the price action of the stock. The next point is self-awareness. Now, I think this is a very, very, very important skill because especially if you're starting a business or you're looking at starting a business or even you're investing, being self-aware of what the market is actually telling you is very, very important. So if you're starting a business and you're asking your family and friends whether your product or service is good, they're obviously going to be a little bit biased and they don't really want to hurt your feelings because they want to support you and, like push you so you can kind of get the momentum, right? So you want to be self-aware of, let's say, feedback from other customers or other potential customers. Like if a customer is saying, oh, this product has issues A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z, and they might be saying the price is significantly high compared to their competitors or whatever, you want to be self-aware about the feedback, what they're actually giving you. And again, you want to adjust to how the market is reacting based on the product and service, what you're actually selling. And again, it's very much similar in the stock market. You don't really want to double down by basically saying, oh, a lot of people don't really understand what I'm selling. Because the thing is, a lot of these people who don't understand are your potential customers. So if a lot of potential customers are saying to you, you should be doing this, again, it's probably worthwhile figuring out that you should really be listening to, let's say, these potential customers rather than trying to do it on your own way. Now, granted, if the product is very, very unique and has a lot of benefits, it should kind of like sell itself. But this is what I've found with a lot of, let's say, founders, where they have a lot of, I would say, delusion around certain products and certain services, and they are not willing to change their mindset. And 95% of them go out of business because they don't have the awareness and the understanding of changing their mind if the market changes. So anyway, these are just some points and some principles what I think are very helpful in terms of wealth creation and obviously helping you to get rich. Now, To the 2 people who've obviously made it this far, I really do appreciate it. Obviously, liking, commenting, and subscribing is very, very good for the channel. To the 4 people, or 2 people, who've made it this far, I hope you're having a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.